Yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy Ansel Armstrong here today, and we have an awesome video for you today. We're going to be talking about Stage 2 Team Affinity. It is coming out this Friday, April 24th. We're going to be talking about what you need to be doing to prepare so that you can take advantage of Stage 2 Team Affinity. Whether you're wanting the Team Affinity cards, you're wanting to capture some subs, you're wanting to take advantage of that way. If you're a no money spent player, there's going to be a lot of great cards to pick up here in Stage 2, and there's going to be stub and pack rewards most likely as well. So we're going to talk about what you need to be doing to prepare yourself for Stage 2, and then at the end of this video we're going to go through and I'm going to give my predictions for all 30 players of Stage 2 Team Affinity. So the first thing you're obviously going to want to be doing is getting as many teams 270 as you possibly can. Just like some of the other programs we've had this year, the Jackie Robinson one and the Player of the Month programs, the programs are broken up into different stages. So what you can accomplish in Stage 1 and give you Team Affinity points there will not work in Stage 2. Let's go in here. Let's pull up my Yankees. I have the Yankees at stage up to 70, fully completed with Stage 1. Now, as we go through and look at this, we can see that these missions and moments in here are only going to work for Stage 1, and they're only going to get you to 70. So when we're looking at the missions and we're looking at these inning missions and whatnot there, those will not give you Team Affinity points rolling over into Stage 2. So when you're putting your team together, you want to make sure you're being smart about that. And when Stage 2 drops, I wouldn't come in here and try to complete a lot of these missions because I do not believe it is going to give you more than 70 points. Same with vouchers. A lot of people have been stockpiling vouchers. I wouldn't be stockpiling vouchers any. I'd be going in through and putting those into teams that I'm not at 70 yet to make sure I can get as many as high as possible. Because again, once you get to Stage 2 from 70 on to 120, as we can scroll down here, and we can see we have the player card coming in here at 120, and that is most likely where Stage 2 will end. As we can see, that goes into Stage 3. So when Stage 2 ends there at 120, those 50 points are only going to be attainable through Stage 2 rewards. So you're going to want to try to get as many to 70 as you can, so when the new Stage 2 missions comes out, you'll be ready to capitalize on those as soon and as quickly as possible. You can knock out that 50, pick up your packs, stubs. There's probably some other rewards hiding around in there. So we have the player card here, second, third, fourth, and fifth reward as well. So certainly some packs in there, most likely some subs, those Team Affinity packs as well, and then most likely there's a couple banners, nameplates, things like that they could throw on as well. But again, you're gonna want to be as many teams to 70 as you possibly can. Currently I'm at 11 teams at 70 of 70 Team Affinity. People have a ton more than me, most certainly, but I'm going to try to grind some more of those out through this week. So on Friday, when that hits, I'm able to attack and have multiple directions I can go. So if one team has a way better card than some other teams, if there's one card that's really sticking out and it's like, this guy is definitely the best Team Affinity Stage 2 card, then I can be in a position to go out and attack and get that card, put them in my lineup, and take those rewards from it as well. One thing to note though on Showdown with Team Affinity Stage 2 is that we do know we will be getting a new Showdown for Team Affinity Stage 2. So potentially some different rewards within the Showdown, but I imagine it'll be the same style and setup as the last one, with 5 vouchers worth 4 each, giving you 20 Team Affinity points. But you're probably going to be drafting different players. You're going to be playing different moments, missions, and going against different pitchers in your bosses and mini bosses. And maybe they go through and adjust it. And, you know, there's been a lot of talking about that Showdown is too difficult this year. It is very difficult. It does take some time. I personally can usually get through Showdown most of the times. I don't mind necessarily where the difficulty is at, especially with how many good rewards you can get through Team Affinity. But based off feedback, I could see them potentially making it a little bit easier than last ones, similar to how the second inning Showdown was easier than the first inning Showdown. So be ready. New Showdowns will be dropping with Stage 2 Team Affinity. Now, one thing that we don't know about and aren't certain about is how March to October is going to work. March to October obviously gets you Team Affinity points for Stage 1. And I would think that March to October would still be able to get you Team Affinity points for Stage 2. Now, what I do not know is if you have a current March to October run already going and already in place, will you be able to roll those rewards over into stage 2? Let's say you have a team at 70 of 70 team affinity points already, and you're one game away from winning the World Series in your March to October, and that's going to give you another 10 to 15 team affinity points. If when stage 2 drops, will you be able to go on, complete that World Series game, pick up those extra 10 to 15 team affinity points, and have a kickstart in for stage 2? I'm not sure. I'm thinking that's how it might work. I would think that you'd still be able to do March to Octobers to get team affinity points in stage 2. Otherwise, only a month into the game, we're making them somewhat redundant instead of, in terms of rewards, especially on Legend. You can get up to 84 team affinity points, so it wouldn't make sense to have that capped at 70 and not be able to go past that. So personally, I do have a couple teams on March to October runs where I'm in the playoffs with them, close to finishing out series, but I'm already at that 70 of 70 team affinity point spot. So I'm holding off. I'm gonna wait, and when stage 2 drops, if it works, I'll be able to go on, win a couple games, and get 10, 20, 30 team affinity points for winning out the World Series on some of those, and be kickstarted into finishing that stage 2 program. But again, we don't know if that's for sure gonna work. I got a feeling it will. But you never know. Weird things can happen. That's kind of my plan. I'm a little cautious on it. I wouldn't bank on it. Don't go through and do a bunch of March to Octobers for teams you're already at 72. But if you need to get some teams to 70, go through, do some March to Octobers, get to 70, stop, and then when stage 2 comes out, you may be able to go on and capitalize on that there. Now, another thing most likely coming with stage 2 is moments as well. I imagine there'll probably be a new set of moments and exchanges as well. So whenever stage 2 drops, be sure to head over there and complete those moments. If you hadn't completed your stage 1 team affinity moments yet, especially as a no money spent player, they are very rewarding. You get somewhere between 20 to 30,000 stubs and 20 to 30,000 XP. It's a ridiculous amount. Go through there, complete your team affinity moments for stage 1, and there will probably be team affinity stage 2 moments as well, so you're going to want to knock those out along with exchanges. So if there's a couple teams you're wanting to knock them out as quickly as possible, I'd probably be going through picking up some 74 overall bronzes from their divisions and rivals to go through an exchange. And if you're looking to make a little investment, make a little flip, picking up some 74 bronzes for some teams you think could have good exchanges. So from a team's divisional and rivals, go through and pick up some of those bronzes, and the price may go up a little bit on Friday whenever the team affinity stage 2 drops. If there's a couple teams that have really banger cards that are lineup worthy, no matter how good people's teams are, and people are really going full speed after those guys, you could see that, and you could see those 74 bronzes shoot up for those exchanges on those teams. So some investment potential there for sure. Personally, I don't know how much I'm going to go into those, just because I don't think they're going to see too big of a change, but they certainly might. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do. So if you're looking for some investments, you know we like to work the market around here, I'd look into that just a little bit. So by following all those tips, you should be pretty well set up for team affinity stage 2, trying to knock out those teams up to 70, as many as you can, so you're positioned to go after them come Friday. And one thing to note as well, in the first inning program, if you remember, we had a collection for prospects, mainly using the gold prospects from Team Affinity. In the second inning, we had a collection for face of the franchise cards, collecting 5 of those, an extra 20 second inning program stars. Now, for the third inning, I think we're going to have a collection for these stage 2 Team Affinity cards. Maybe not 5, it may only be 3, but I could see it being up to 5. So you want to be able to collect those as well, especially if you're planning on grinding out that third inning program and selling your boss, trying to capitalize there. I know I locked in my voucher last night. I'm ready to go for inning number 3. It'll be here sooner than we know. You only have a week between stage 2 and inning 3. So there'll probably be a collection for the cards from this stage 2. So be thinking about trying to pick a couple of those up quickly as well, to be ready for that third inning program. Now on to our predictions for the stage 2 Team Affinity cards. We know that they are going to be future stars cards. I think it's a really cool way to get some more usable cards in the game for a lot of teams. They're probably going to be 90 to 93 overall cards, and a couple of them are probably going to be incredibly good cards. Now, some of these teams are pretty difficult to find a future stars card for. And we now know that prospects can also get future stars cards. As we know, the next headliner coming out on Tuesday will be Nick Madrigal. And I went through, and all these predictions are based off the idea that future stars cards are generally younger players who are currently MLB players and just have more potential, as opposed to a heightened version of a prospect card. So with that in mind, knowing that Nick Madrigal is getting a future stars card, that changes some of these up for sure, but we're going to roll with what we have, with the presumption that these cards are all going to be current major league players who are under the age of 25 and have some potential. So starting with the Orioles, we're going with Austin Hayes. So Austin Hayes was a top 25 or so prospect before the 2018 season, headed into that season. He had limited showtime last year, but in only 68 at bats, he hit 309 with 4 homers. So he's going to be probably more of a contact hitter, speed guy. But Austin Hayes is who I'm predicting for the Orioles. Now, looking at the Red Sox, I think this one's one of the easier ones. The big piece in the Mookie Betts trade going back to the Red Sox was Alex Verdugo. He's only 23 years old, a lot of potential. You can see again, he's going to be more of a contact speed guy, but he's already a diamond defender. If you get him to a 90 to 93, he's going to keep that diamond defense. Give him some pop in contact, could be a really cool card. So the Yankees are one of the teams that have a couple guys that could get a future stars card. Obviously, Labor with the face of the franchise card probably won't get a future stars, but it could be Miguel Andujar or Estevan Florial. However, I'm going with the Clint Frazier. He's already 25, so he's a little bit older than a lot of these guys, but a lot of people are really hyped on Clint Frazier. He's had a rough couple seasons, but a lot of people believe he's a guy that can turn things around and have a lot of potential in the future. So I'm thinking Clint Frazier is going to knock down that future stars card spot for the Yankees team affinity. Now we're looking at the Rays. We're looking at, in my opinion, from these guesses, what could be one of the better future stars cards. It's Brandon Lau. Again, another guy who's 25, but he was 3rd in Rookie of the Year last year, and he was the front runner for Rookie of the Year before he got hurt last year. So a guy with a lot of potential, a big upside, kind of crashed and broke out onto the scene last year. I think he could be a really good player. And as you can see, he already has some decent pop and fielding. If you boost him up to a 90, 93 overall type of card, I think he could be one of the better future star cards of the bunch. Now for the Blue Jays, this one may be too obvious for them to go with, but I think it's going to be Bo Bichette. Now, the only reason it may not be Bo Bichette, I think we're for certain getting a future stars Bo Bichette card, but as one of the most top heralded rookies, he may end up being a headliner or an event reward as well. However, I think we're going to get a Bo Bichette card, probably pretty similar to the future stars Bichette we got last year, which was not a halfback card. And as one of the top rookies in the game, it makes sense that he would be a future stars card. Now, looking at the White Sox, they also have one of the top rookies from last year, Eloy Jimenez. I think this one is another one that may be too obvious, and Eloy could get a 95 plus overall card that you get somewhere else. But if he's not getting that, I could easily see Eloy Jimenez being the White Sox future stars team affinity stage 2 card. If it's not Eloy, I'd say it's probably Dylan Cease, but I feel pretty good about Eloy being that card. And same with Brandon Lau. This card may be one of the best ones of the bunch. When looking at the Indians, I think I'm going to go with Franmil Reyes as the future star card for them. He hit 37 home runs last year, has a ton of pop. This card could be a really awesome card. He's not going to do anything a whole lot crazy for you on defense, but he's going to hit absolute tanks. Now, the Indians, they could also potentially go with Shane Bieber, but seeing how he's already an 83 overall, I'm not sure if they'd want to boost him to diamond level with a future stars card, or potentially they could give him a higher rated future stars card as an award through another avenue of the game. But for the Indians, I feel pretty confident about Franmil Reyes picking up that future stars card. Now, the Tigers are another one that's tough. They don't have a ton of young under than 25 guys on their team, but if I'm going to guess from one of them, I'm going to go with Victor Reyes. If it's not Victor Reyes, I could also see it being Jeimer Candelario. However, knowing that prospects are also able to be future stars as well now, thanks to the Nick Madrigal headliner, I think Riley Green is probably the most likely of these if they don't go with a current player. They already have a bunch of the other Tigers top guys prospect wise in the game, so I could easily see Riley Green being that 90 to 93 overall card. and the future stars for the Tigers. Now, the Royals are another team that's kind of tricky to pin down. Of course, I think one of the most obvious ones would be Adalberto Mondesi. However, we already have the 85 overall Diamond Classics card. But that being said, we already have two Nick Madrigals in the game as well. We keep bringing him up, but that's kind of guiding a lot of our decisions. So I could see it being Adalberto Mondesi. If they don't want to go with Mondesi and give him another diamond, maybe somebody like Nicky Lopez, or they go the prospect route and we get ourselves a nice Brady Singer, maybe Bobby Witt Jr. card. Both of those would be incredible cards. But if they do go with Mondesi, I think this will hands down probably be the best future stars card if Mondesi gets one. His 85 is already an absolute glitch. If you boost that card up and you give him an 890, 93, I don't even ever want to see that card, because I know I'm going to give up 4 for 4 with 4 home runs against him every single time I play him. Now, looking at the Twins, I think they're going to go with Luis Arias for the future stars of the Team Affinity Stage 2 with the Twins. He hit 334 last year in his first season, getting a chance to play, and he's only 22 years old, so a lot of projectability to him there, and I think he'd fit in the future stars mold really well. Now, moving on to the Angels, I think this one is pretty straightforward. If they're looking for a young guy on the team, it's going to be Griffin Canning, 23 years old, a lot of hype around him. One of the Angels' top prospects outside of Joe Adell, who already has a card in the game. Unfortunately, dealing with some injuries for Griffin Canning right now, but I could easily see him getting a 90 to 93 overall Team Affinity Stage 2 Future Stars card. Now, looking at the Athletics, I think they are going to go with Franklin Barreto, 24 years old, a former top prospect in the game. The A's, a lot of their top prospects already have cards in the game. Luzardo already has a card. The only other card I could see him potentially going with would be an AJ Puck, which I think would be really good, but I think Barreto would be a great card as well. That third base shortstop, it could be a really, really sneaky good card for the Athletics future stars. Now, moving on to the Mariners. So far, we've had a lot of position players that we've been looking at as these future stars cards. So because of this, we're going to go with Justice Sheffield for the Mariners, a young lefty for the Mariners. A lot of hype around him, one of their top prospects. I think they could also potentially go with a guy like Kyle Lewis as well, but seeing as how I've already been guessing a lot of position players, we're going to go with another pitcher here and go with Justice Sheffield. Now, for the Rangers, as a Rangers fan, completely biased here, one of the ones I'm most excited about, please, dear Lord, give us a Willie Calhoun Future Stars card. If you haven't used this Willie Calhoun base one, he's kind of sneaky incredible. Go play a Showdown AL West, draft yourself Willie Calhoun, one of the smoothest swings in the game. Ball flies off his bat. If you take this card, you give him some passable defense and even better hitting stats, he is going to be one of the absolute best Stage 2 Team Affinity guys you can pick up in the game. For the Astros, I feel like this one may be one that could be too high of one, or maybe a little too obvious, but Yordan Alvarez, Rookie of the Year last year, one of the most heralded top young players in the game. He's an obvious choice to get a Future Stars card. The only reason he wouldn't be in the Team Affinity Stage 2 reward path is if they're going to give him a higher one, put him in the Headliners, World Series reward, 12-0 program. Who knows what they could do? And I think if they do that, they may give Kyle Tucker the Stage 2 Team Affinity spot for the Astros, both of which would think would be good cards. But if Yordan gets a boosted card, it is going to be absolutely insane. So looking at the Braves again, in an attempt to make sure we're pretty balanced between position players and pitchers, we're going Mike Soroka. He had an absolutely incredible rookie season. A dude with a lot of potential, just 22 years old. I think Soroka would be an obvious and easy choice to pick up a Future Stars card. Now, the Marlins are another one that's pretty tough. Their top prospect, Sixto Sanchez, he's already in the game. So when looking at current players, I think Sandy Alcantara, 24 years old. I think he has solid potential. But again, this one is really a toss-up. They could go prospect again and go JJ Bleday, one of the top draft picks from last year's draft, and give him a Future Stars card pretty early on. Or there's a couple guys that are kind of on that borderline gap that used to have a lot of potential and are on the Marlins now. They're a bit older, but maybe they have a second win in their career. Maybe a guy like a Lewis Brinson or Jorge Alfaro, somebody along those steps. But yeah, Marlins are a bit of a tough one. So we're going to go with Sandy as their future star. Now, looking at the Nationals, I probably would say Victor Robles, but he already actually has a future stars card in the game and a classics version from a previous year. So I don't think that they double down and give him another one. So because of that, we're going with Carter Kieboom, one of the top prospects of the Nationals, just 21 years old, really young, great fielder. If you give him some hitting ratings to go with those, probably a diamond fielding at a 90+ overall card, could be a really good card, and at a nice shortstop position, which those middle infield spots can be kind of lacking so far in this year's game. So looking at the Mets, I'm gonna go with Ahmed Rosario. He's 24, so getting a little bit older, but a former top 10 prospect headed into 2017. He's only played 2 full seasons with the Mets so far, so I think he still has future star card potential. Now, another thing they could do, which would be really interesting, is give it to Pete Alonso and give him a 94, 95, 93 overall future star card and kind of pimp out what his live series card is. I think that would be really interesting, but I don't see that quite being as realistic. So we're going Ahmed Rosario for the Mets. Now, the Phillies are another team that can be kind of hard to pinpoint down. They have a couple guys that are kind of up in the air and they could go several directions with this, but we've had a Scott Kingery future stars card in the past. So I think they're going to double down and give us another Scott Kingery future stars card, maybe a little bit boosted over that last one. He is already 25, but I think he makes the most sense out of what's available from the Phillies players. For the Cubs, we're going to go with one of the other top rookies this year, Nico Hoerner, just 22 years old, just kind of starting to break on to the major league scene. So makes a lot of sense to give him a future stars card. And this is one of the ones that I feel a little bit better about in terms of my prediction. If they don't go Nico Hoerner, I could see it potentially being Ian Happ. But outside of that, I think those are probably the 2 most clear and obvious choices for the Chicago Cubs. Looking at the Reds, we're going to go with Aristides Aquino. Again, a guy who's already 25 years old, but he's one of the biggest rookies so far in the game right now. He was one of the most anticipated players, young players for this year. So I think Aquino is going to find himself a future stars card, if not through the Team Affinity Stage 2, through some other form there. Now, moving on to the Brewers, I think this one is pretty clear cut, dry, and obvious. Keston Hiura, just 22 years old, one of the more hyped up younger players in the league right now. A lot of people are really high on this guy, and he could have a really great future stars card, especially if he gets those boosts to those righty contact and power. At minimum, he could be an insane bench bat. So for the Pirates, we're going to go with Brian Reynolds. He was 4th in NL Rookie of the Year voting last year, kind of busted onto the scene. He's another guy who's a little bit older, but if he's still kind of finding his stride, he could have a lot of potential and find himself with a really nice future star card. I could also see the Pirates, another one of those teams that's a little bit up in the air. They could go Kevin Newman, or they could go the prospect route and somebody potentially like Cole Tucker. Now, the Cardinals were one of the tougher teams to kind of lock down. They don't have a ton of young guys on the roster with a lot of projectability, and they already have a couple prospect cards as is. Alex Reyes already has the future stars card. They could potentially maybe go with the future stars guard for a guy like Nolan Gorman, as he didn't get the prospect card. Dylan Carlson got that, but outside of that, I think it could be a Jack Flaherty. This one could be a pretty solid card if you boost him up. He's only 24. He's still with a lot of potential, still rounding into form. Even though he's already the diamond, I could see them giving him another diamond through the Future Stars program. Now, on to the Diamondbacks. I think the most obvious choice is Zach Gallen, getting another pitcher here. One of the more highly thought of rookies in this year's class. So I think Zach Gallen will lock it down for the Diamondbacks for their Future Stars card. Looking at the Rockies, it's actually crazy to think that Brendan Rodgers is still just 22 years old. He's been a top prospect for the last 4 or 5 years now. He finally got a chance to bust onto the scene a little bit last year. He didn't do anything crazy. He was very limited playing time, but he was a guy who was looking to get more playing time this year and someone who has a lot of potential at just 22 years old. I think he fits the mold perfectly for a Future Stars card, and I feel pretty confident that Brendan Rodgers is going to be the Rockies. Looking at the Dodgers, I think it really comes down to Gavin Lux and Dustin May. Both of them are cards that could potentially end up being better than the 90 to 93 kind of mold we're thinking for Team Affinity Stage 2. But we already know that Dustin May actually already has a leaked prospect card that was shown in some of the pre-release marketing materials there. So if it's not going to be Dustin May, it makes sense that Gavin Lux is going to pick up the Future Stars card for the Dodgers. One of the most hyped rookies. Him, Jordan, and Bo Bichette are probably the 3 most hyped rookies of the year. So it makes sense that they would find themselves with Future Stars card in this game. Now on to the Padres. Another guy who was extremely hyped up going into this season, was looking to have a huge campaign building off his incredible 2019 year, was Chris Paddock. And so I think it makes a lot of sense that he would pick up a Future Stars card, and he would probably be a really solid Future Stars card if you give him some really solid per 9s, juice up his velo a little bit. You give Chris Paddock a 90 to 93 overall, and he could be a really great player. And finally, on to the Giants. Another one that's kind of tough. They could go the prospect route and give us somebody, Joey Bart or Marco Luciano. However, if they're going to stick to current players more so, I think Logan Webb is one of the best options. One of the Giants' top prospects last year. He got called up during the 2019 campaign. Didn't do anything insane, but he was okay. He's only 23 years old, and again, he was one of their top prospects headed into last season. So it makes sense if he picks up himself a Future Stars card. So that does it for us here. A bit of a long video as we went through all of our predictions for that, but I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comment description below, who do you think is going to be the Future Stars for your favorite team, or maybe some obvious ones that I may have overlooked and missed there. But as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe. The support over the last couple weeks has been insane. I sound like a broken record, but we keep saying it because it keeps being true. And as well, in the comment section below, what are your plans to get ready for Stage 2 Team Affinity? Are you going to be grinding it out when it comes out Friday? What are you looking at doing there? But until next time, I'll see y'all later.